My dog returned from the woods with strange changes. All of the following began after my dog, Remy, was out a few hours later than usual. He is a white Canaan dog and is only about mid-sized. Towards the end of the day, I let him out into my backyard, and usually around sunset he comes up to the back door and scratches to let me know he'd like to be let inside. Most of the time though, I'm outside with him watching him do his thing. This one night though was different because I had some work I had to finish up, so it took me longer than usual to notice Remy hadn't signaled to let him in yet. It had been nearly an hour since the sun had set, so I went out into the backyard to call for him. I called out his name a few times and got no response. Where I live, all of the houses on my street have a backyard that is bordered by miles of thick East Tennessee woods. I guess I sort of live in a transitional area between suburban neighborhoods and straight cow pastures. All that to be said, it is somewhat private and quiet where I am. When calling for him didn't work, I got a flashlight and started searching the tree line for him. At first I saw nothing and my worry was beginning to grow. But then I heard the sounds of something making its way through the brush towards me. I was confident it was Remy, so I began to head back towards the house. Sure enough, Remy came out from the woods and ran past me, up the porch, and into the house. I had left the door slightly ajar. I didn't think much of anything at first, but very quickly I noticed some unusual things. First of all, Remy wouldn't acknowledge me when I called his name. It was as if he didn't know his own name. This couldn't have been the case though, because I had had him for almost 8 years, and he definitely knew his name. I also noticed that Remy was completely warm to the touch. He was so warm that I thought he might have been sick, especially since he threw up a few times also. Another odd thing was that Remy was eating and drinking way more than usual. Anytime I filled his food bowl, he finished it in just a few minutes, and I found myself filling his water bowl up constantly throughout the day. This all happened consistently for about 2 days after that night. On the third day, I was planning on taking him to the vet, but when I woke up, Remy was completely back to normal. He was eating regularly, his body temperature was normal, and he recognized his name. I figured he must have just had a short bug or something, and so I took him for a walk on the trails behind my house so we could both get some fresh air. There was one thing, however, that was still strange to me about Remy's behavior. He was much more distant. Before, Remy would spend every night at the foot of my bed, but now he suddenly preferred to spend the nights at the back door of my house. I remember the night he was seemingly better. Instead of following me up to my room, he just pawed at the back door. I let him out and stood on the porch watching him, but it didn't seem like he wanted to go out to use the bathroom or something. It seemed like he wanted to stay outside all night. I eventually called him back in, and he followed somewhat reluctantly. Once inside again, he did not leave the back door. He didn't cry or complain, but he remained there until the next morning when I came down to make breakfast. Remy's behavior went on for about a week before something happened that temporarily shifted my attention elsewhere. I remember waking up in the middle of the night. For some reason, I just didn't feel like sleeping, so I went downstairs to get something to eat. I turned on the kitchen light and saw that Remy wasn't by the back door. I called for him, but couldn't find him anywhere in the house. I panicked a little, thinking that maybe I had forgotten to let him inside again, so I flipped the back porch lights on. The moment the lights lit up the backyard, I briefly saw the silhouette of a person frantically scramble back into the tree line. I wasn't paying attention too hard, so I wasn't sure of what I'd seen. I reasoned that I must have seen something otherwise. Why would I have even thought I saw anything in the first place? I went around to all my doors and windows and made sure they were locked before resuming my search for Remy. My back door was unlocked. I guess I had left it unlocked. I will admit that after seeing that figure, I wasn't thrilled about the idea of going outside to search for Remy. But thankfully, a few minutes later, Remy appeared on the back porch and seemed perfectly fine. I let him inside and went back to sleep. As I fell back to sleep, I thought about how Remy could have gotten outside because I was sure that I hadn't left him outside. I couldn't come to a conclusion really, but a few days later, something happened that took my mind off of it. My neighbors a few houses down, a young couple, had gone missing. Someone had noticed their back door was open, and no one had left the house for a few days. When the house was investigated, it was found that nothing had been taken, but the couple had completely disappeared. They were both adults, so the thought that maybe they had just up and left wasn't completely out of the picture, but the circumstances were just too strange, so an investigation was launched. I didn't end up mentioning the person I saw in my backyard, however, because I wasn't even confident I had seen someone in the first place. The investigation almost completely took my mind off of Remy's strange behavior, but something happened yesterday that has left me unsure of what to think about any of this. The disappearance happened almost a week ago at this point. A day ago, I took Remy for a walk on the trails behind my house. Nearly halfway through, Remy used the bathroom a few feet off the trail. When Remy was done, I couldn't help but notice that he was slightly bleeding from his ass. It sounds strange, and it is, but I took a look at his shit because I thought he must have eaten something that hurt him when he used the bathroom. I was right. Sticking out noticeably from his shit was a metallic object. Upon closer inspection, I came to the dreadful realization it was a wedding ring. Where and how could Remy end up consuming an entire wedding ring? That night, I thought hard about the strange events with Remy, his high body temperature, his distant behavior, how he had somehow gotten out of the house one night by himself, and of course the wedding ring. As I was thinking, I heard Remy scratch on my closed bedroom door. He wanted in, but something told me just to ignore it for the night. Something was off. I rolled over and closed my eyes, pretending to sleep, as if Remy could tell or cared. However, something strange happened. The scratching stopped, and I heard the sound of the door handle turning over. The door quietly cracked open and no one came in. At that point, I was completely frozen. I thought someone must have been in the house. Now I was really committed to pretending to be asleep. Yet silently, I watched the cracked door. Minutes went by and no one entered. I found myself holding my breath, and so I methodically took a few slow breaths. After a few painfully slow minutes, the door slowly opened further, and in came the familiar footsteps of Remy. He jumped up onto the edge of my bed, and even from where I was laying, I could feel his intense warmth again. I spent the following day today reflecting on all of this. I cannot get this idea out of my head. What if the wedding ring belongs to my missing neighbors? I'm considering calling it in. Yes, I have the ring, but what would I even tell the police? I'm not a hero. I don't want to investigate this any further. I think if I do, I'll find out something truly horrifying. So for right now, this journal entry will have to do.